Hello, I'm Nick Park. When I was growing up in the 1960s, there was a word that I never heard. And it's a word I think that everyone would be familiar today, even young children, and that is influencer. Today, people understand that there are influencers. There are those who, for one reason or another, and sometimes I wonder how on earth they have it because they don't seem to deserve it, but people who do seem to have a platform and what they say influences other people, either to behave in particular ways or to buy certain products. Now, while the whole idea of having people who are called influencers may be a more recent innovation, as long as human beings have been about, and certainly as long as the gospel has been preached, there have been influencers. There have been those who can influence others to receive Jesus as Saviour and to follow him. The Apostle Paul was a great influencer, and of course Jesus himself was the ultimate influencer. But you can be an influencer without being a household name. You can be an influencer without having thousands of followers on social media. I thank God for influencers that changed my life forever because of the influence they had on me. One was a man called George, who was a Salvation Army officer, and he was running a Salvation Army hostel where I went for shelter when my life was at a particularly low point. And he showed me the love of Jesus Christ to a very confused, angry and hostile young teenager that I was. He showed me the love of Jesus, showed me grace and compassion, and declared the truth about Jesus Christ. That helped lead me to the point where I received Jesus as my Lord and Saviour. George, I don't think he ever had thousands of followers, but he was an influencer for me. And then there was Reg. Reg was also a Salvation Army officer. He was never a high flyer in the movement. He never held really high position, or he wasn't one of the religious preachers that are in demand to go preaching at conferences all over the country. But Reg was a man who spoke bluntly and plainly. He was from London, had a Cockney accent, and he just spoke it as it was. And I have to say, as a young Christian growing up, listening to him teaching the word, it wasn't that he had some amazing insight that nobody else had, but he did have a gift for taking simple spiritual truths and stating them in a way that you couldn't misunderstand them. And that influenced me and continues to influence my life to this day. Another influencer that I want to recognize, the third one I want to recognize today, is a man called Scott. Scott was a missionary, an American missionary that in the early days of us starting the church in Drogheda came and did some teachings for us. And when he came, it was embarrassing because our church was so small and so few people turned out. I felt it was just, this guy must be wondering, what on earth am I doing here? But Scott actually sat down with me and gave me some names of people. He said, look, I know people in this church and people in that church and people in that church in the United States. He said, and if you give them a call, he said, they have mission conferences and stuff like that. And I'm sure they would be prepared to help for what you're doing in Ireland and to pray for you. And so I followed up on just 2 or 3 addresses. Now, here's the interesting thing. As I look back today to some of the most influential people that I've dealt with in my life, I first contacted those people through Scott's few introductions that he gave me. I can trace those connections back, and they all seem to come through that time that I sat down with Scott. Scott still serving God as a missionary today. He's not one of those household names. I don't think you're likely ever to see his name up in lights or on a Christian television channel. But for me, Scott was an influencer because he helped connect me with people that I needed to get alongside as I was following the Lord and trying to fulfill the vision that the Lord has given me. So I thank God for George, Reg, and Scott. 3 men from 3 different parts of the world and 3 very different backgrounds, and yet all of them made a massive impact and influence on my life. And I want to encourage you, you don't need to be some kind of religious superstar. You don't need to be a celebrity. You don't need to be somebody that just everyone immediately looks at you and think, wow, they've got the X factor. But you need to be faithful, and you need to have a heart to love people and to share Jesus with them. When you do that, you can be one of the greatest influencers there have ever been. May God bless you today. Join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.